Homage to our fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, the wisdom warrior, homage to all lineage masters of great kindness. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in 1,000,000 eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara. Please generate supreme bodhicitta. Now we will teach the words of my perfect teacher. In the words of my perfect teacher, we have been continuously teaching about relying on spiritual teachers. Well, relying on spiritual teachers, that is to say, for every person in a lifetime of learning, it is extremely important, because without the guidance of spiritual teachers, relying on one's own wisdom and one's own abilities to truly comprehend the ultimate nature of all phenomena is quite difficult, one could say impossible. Therefore, through reverence and service to spiritual teachers, through such conditions one attains enlightenment. Each of us should seek such a path. Therefore, in our process of learning Buddhism, why do we say relying on spiritual teachers is most important? The reason lies here. Today we continue teaching the story of Venerable Naropa relying on Venerable Tilopa. Through this story, we ourselves should, in our lifetime, if we have the opportunity to rely on spiritual teachers, no matter what kind of situations we encounter, on one hand, follow their teachings. On the other hand, during the process of reliance, do not develop weariness. Such is the process, here it explains. The great scholar Naropa, during his reliance on Tilopa, also experienced countless hardships. Actually, Venerable Naropa was formerly a prince of India. Later, his parents, fearing he would become a monk, devised all kinds of methods. Later, at age 25, he had already become a monk. Naropa should have been born in the year 1016 CE. In the year 1100, he manifested parinirvana. It was like this. During this time, a real person appeared in this world. So, for each story here, we must never regard it as a mythological story or treat it merely as folk legends. It should be regarded as true events that actually occurred through their stories of practice. In our mind streams, we can likewise generate realization. At that time, he became a great scholar at Nalanda Monastery. Later, I think I mentioned this before, once when he was reciting sutras and treatises, an old woman appeared beside him. At that time, the old woman asked, "Do you master both words and meaning?" He said, "I have mastered the words." Initially saying, "I haven't mastered the meaning of these treatises I haven't mastered." At this time, that old woman appeared extremely joyful and began singing and dancing. At that time, the Venerable thought, when I said I mastered words, she was so happy. If I said I mastered the meaning, she might be even happier. He then immediately said I was joking. Actually, I'm very proficient in meaning too. At that time, the old woman began crying loudly. Then Venerable Naropa asked, "Why are you crying?" She said, "Earlier you first said you mastered the words. At that time I felt it was true. You were still speaking the truth. When you say you master the meaning, this is impossible. You are completely lying, so I'm very sad and crying." Later, Naropa said, "In that case, who do you say masters the meaning?" She said, "My brother is called Tilopa. He is the one who masters meaning. If you want to truly comprehend meaning, it's best to seek him." After saying this old woman had disappeared, vanished. Through this circumstance, he began seeking Venerable Tilopa. In the process of seeking, actually there's a specific biography of Naropa. From the biography, one can see many wonderful stories. For example, initially when he was traveling, there was a leper woman on the road. The road was particularly narrow with no way to pass. At this time, that woman continuously blocked the path. She said, "Either you go around or step over me." Later, Naropa really had no choice but to step over her. After stepping over, this leper woman from before began rising into the sky, singing Vajra songs to him in the air. "You should not insult others in the future. Don't discriminate against others. If you behave this way, how can you find your guru?" At this time, Naropa was very sad. Then he vowed from then on to respect every person like his own guru. At this time, the earlier woman's magical display had disappeared. Then walking further, on the road he encountered a mother dog with a rotting body. He really had no choice but to step over this mother dog again. As a result, the mother dog also flew into the air and sang Vajra songs to him. saying, "If you discriminate against sentient beings and animals like this, how can you meet your guru?" Later he understood that every sentient being possesses Buddha nature and cannot be looked down upon. Again, he made vows and so forth. In between, many such experiences appeared. Actually, they were all manifestations of his guru, which he didn't realize at the time. Finally, as we introduced before, it was Venerable Tilopa. Here it also says, as mentioned before, Venerable Tilopa was sitting in the form of a beggar, at that time continuously eating fish. Some biographies say he ate fish while liberating them. Others say some he ate, some he spat out. When he put them back in the lake, they came back to life. Naropa approached to pay respects and requested to be accepted. Venerable Tilopa finally agreed. Initially, he didn't agree, but finally he agreed. Thereafter, wherever the guru went, he brought him along, but he never gave him teachings. Some biographies say he did transmit a small amount of teachings. Others say he never transmitted teachings regardless. Later it describes approximately 12 great austerities and 12 small austerities. The 12 great austerities basically had about a year's interval between each. Sometimes the guru, after a year had passed, would torment him or apparently beat him up, then again remain silent. Venerable Naropa would be very anxious at his side, but couldn't receive teachings. It was always like this, waiting another year, and when another year had passed, again manifesting a rather difficult to accept appearance, then beginning what was equivalent to a retreat method, so the time he spent in reliance was quite long. When I first came to the academy, at a Xinhua bookstore, I bought a biography of Venerable Naropa, which also described the 12 great austerities. Later I saw there was also a Chinese version. I don't remember clearly who wrote the Chinese version. It should have been first translated from Bhutan into English, then translated from English into Chinese. There's also such a biography. This biography also introduces from beginning to end how Venerable Naropa relied on his spiritual teacher, the entire process of austerities. This process is described in considerable detail. Here it says he never gave him teachings. Let's look at this below. Possibly each individual austerity. Some individual austerities he performed. The book has some portions we might still be able to explain more, if possible. This way we know, in his lifetime, through what kind of actions he began relying on his guru. One day, Venerable Tilopa brought Venerable Naropa to the top of a 9-story building, then said, "If one follows the guru's instructions and practices accordingly, I wonder if there's anyone who would jump down from this tall building." He spoke like this at that time. At that time, Venerable Naropa thought to himself, "There are no other people here. These words must be directed at me." So he didn't consider much, since the guru had mentioned this. Then he leaped down from the rooftop, nearly completely shattered. He endured immeasurable pain and suffering. At this time, the guru came forward and asked, "Are you in pain?" He replied, "Not only am I in pain, it's as if I've become a corpse. Not only is it painfully deadly, I've completely become like a corpse." He answered like this at that time, saying he had completely become like a corpse. This was the first austerity. We should also understand, through Venerable Tilopa's blessings, his body later recovered completely. This was the first austerity. Then for the second austerity, the guru brought him to another place and instructed, saying, "Naropa, light a fire." At that time, Naropa also followed the instructions, and after the fire was lit, the guru took many long bamboo poles, coated them with oil, and roasted them over the fire, then made them into extremely hard, razor-sharp bamboo spikes. He then said, following the guru's instructions and acting accordingly, one needs to experience such suffering. And after saying this, he inserted all these bamboo spikes between Venerable Naropa's fingers and toes. Generally speaking, in worldly terms, this is very difficult to endure. Taking thin bamboo splinters from the fire, all inserted between his fingers and toes. All the joints in his body had become almost completely stiff. He experienced unbearable suffering. Afterwards, the guru went to another place, leaving him there, only returning after several days to remove those bamboo spikes. Now let us think, even a particularly small thorn, if it pierces our body, we find it very difficult to endure. Who could accept such treatment? From Venerable Naropa's wounds at that time, much blood and pus flowed out. Venerable Tilopa later gave blessings and then took him away. This was his second austerity. For the third austerity, one day the Guru also said, "Naropa, now I'm hungry, go beg for some food." Then Venerable Naropa went to where many farmers were eating. At that time he begged back a full skull cup of steaming hot porridge and returned to offer it to his Guru. Venerable Tilopa at that time appeared extremely happy. With a smiling face he ate it all with relish. He ate with great satisfaction, appearing particularly joyful. At that time Naropa thought to himself, "I've been following my Guru and doing so many things, but I've never seen my Guru as happy as this time. If I go beg again, might I also obtain a little?" So he again took the skull cup and went to those farmers from before, but found that those farmers had already gone to work in the fields. The remaining porridge was left in the original place. He thought to himself, "Now, if I steal a little, it doesn't matter. For my Guru, for a good cause, stealing a little doesn't matter." Then he picked up the skull cup, ladled a bowl and ran back. He didn't expect that those farmers had already seen him. They chased after him and caught him. Without saying a word, they beat him up, severely beating him. Each of them chased after him and gave him a severe beating. He almost died. They nearly took his life. Venerable Naropa at that time cried out in pain, really couldn't get up, so he had to lie there for several days. The Guru later came to give blessings and then took him away. Some biographies say that at that time the Guru also told him, "Go again to ask for some food. If they chase you, you'd best draw a water symbol on the road and also brandish a precious sword." Afterwards, when he went to prepare to steal in India, there's a custom. After asking the first time, when asking the second time, no one will give. When asking the second time, they also wouldn't give. He had no choice but to pour a skull cup of water on their food. At this time, all the people began to hate him, saying, "You've already dirtied our food," and beat him severely. They chased after him, and when they were chasing him on the sand of the road, he drew a water symbol. Through his Guru's blessings, it immediately became a lake. Their path was blocked. At this time, an old woman appeared nearby and told these farmers, "You all work hard to quickly dry it up. After drying it up, you can continue chasing." Those farmers dried up this lake, and after drying it, continued chasing. When continuing to chase, Naropa again brandished his precious sword. Later, it seems they began attacking him with various weapons. In that place he also almost died. There's also such an account. So generally in our process of relying on gurus, indeed from this example one can see, one should rely on one's guru at the cost of one's life. After the guru came, he took him away again. Therefore the sutra of the great heap of jewels also teaches, "Do not cherish your body and life. Hold your mind like a vajra. You should best not cherish your own body and life. This persevering mind should be like a vajra. In the process of relying on one's guru, continuously persevere. Properly seek the teacher's path. Do not abandon right faith." Especially when seeking gurus, wholeheartedly seek the teacher's path. One must never abandon one's right faith. Right faith cannot be abandoned. If you abandon right faith, then your reliance on gurus is fundamentally impossible to succeed. There's also such teaching. The third austerity I just described, let me give you a general introduction. For the fourth austerity, there was another time when Venerable Tilopa said, "Naropa, I now need many material things, go steal." He said this without a word. He went to a wealthy man's house to steal. As a result, after being discovered and caught, he was again beaten half to death. After several days, the Guru came again to give blessings. However, the Guru was still capable. He continuously came to give blessings. He asked, "Are you in pain?" Naropa answered the same as before. "Not only am I in pain, it's as if I've become like a corpse." After the Guru gave blessings, he continued to take him away. There might be several more. For example, the biography tells, once Venerable Tilopa was in a place where much sandalwood was piled. Then he lit a fire. When Naropa approached, he said, "Whoever truly draws close to their Guru would jump into this fire." Venerable Naropa immediately jumped into this fire. His entire body was burned and rotted. He almost died. Later, the Guru gave blessings and he recovered. This is one. There's another one. There was a place that was deep and dark, and inside were all kinds of leeches and maggots, extremely filthy. In this place, the Guru also said, if anyone would follow instructions, then a bridge would be built in this place. At that time, Venerable Naropa immediately went down into that dark and foul-smelling pond and began building a bridge. In the process of building the bridge, the countless maggots and leeches inside continuously devoured his body. He almost died there. Many maggots had already crawled on his body, both filthy and painful. He almost died. Later the Guru gave him blessings and he possibly recovered. There was another time when they were travelling together on a grassland. They saw ahead a person walking with a bundle on his back. Then the Guru said, if one follows instructions, one should chase this person and catch that person. Venerable Naropa continuously chased. That person ran faster and faster. Later, in the empty, deserted wilderness, he couldn't continue and collapsed there because that person ran extremely fast, continuously, finally had completely disappeared. Later Naropa continuously wept there, and Guru again gave him blessings. There's another one. Once they saw a minister getting married, on the street escorting his bride. Passing by, at this time, Venerable Tilopa said, if anyone relies on their Guru and listens to their Guru, then his bride should be dragged down. He recklessly ran there and began dragging this bride. Later the people around began beating him severely. He almost died again. There was another time when they saw the king and queen on an outing. Venerable Tilopa again said, whoever truly listens to their Guru, this queen looks very annoying, surely would strike her, then drag her down and abuse her. At that time, Naropa again ran before the king and began abusing the queen, then again the people around. Of course, if someone bothers the king's queen, that person would certainly receive attacks from everyone around. There was another time, which seems to be about humiliating a prince. There was a prince who had just finished bathing and was riding in a carriage. The Guru said, whoever truly wants to rely on a Guru should pull that prince down from his mount and humiliate him. This would be the best. Later, he began to humiliate this prince. All the ministers and armies around began beating him, causing extreme suffering. Another time, Naropa was asked to find a woman. He was originally a monk and was particularly unwilling, but he could only listen to his Guru, so he went to find one. After finding her, he was asked to offer her to the Guru, so he offered her to the Guru. When offering her to the Guru, the beautiful woman didn't like the Guru. Her eyes kept staring at Venerable Naropa. At that time, Venerable Tilopa began beating this woman. This could also be considered a kind of mental austerity. I seem to remember this is mentioned in there. In another place, Naropa was asked to use his body to make a mandala. He cut off his head and placed it in the center, with his limbs placed around it. Then blood from his body began spurting out, sprinkling dust and so forth. After he actually did this, perhaps at this time, basically many austerities had been completed. At that time his body began to recover after the Guru's blessing. Looking at that biography, it's truly very moving. When we ordinary worldly people rely on spiritual teachers, basically we only look for faults, and basically may not be single-minded. Of course, gurus like Tilopa are very rare, but disciples like Naropa are indeed very rare. Such conditions, many people don't achieve enlightenment, and the reason lies here. Before and after, he experienced many such great austerities 12 times. I just mentioned 4 times from what I discussed earlier. I added some more. Basically, there were 12 great austerities. Additionally, there were 12 minor austerities. The minor austerities are basically not mentioned here, but are recorded in the biography. Altogether, before and after, he experienced 24 kinds of austerities. After all the austerities were completed, finally one day Venerable Tilopa said this, Naropa, you go fetch water, I'll make a fire here. When Venerable Naropa went to the river to fetch water and returned, the Guru had just finished making the fire. Then the Guru stood up and came before Venerable Naropa. He grabbed Venerable Naropa's throat with his left hand. Then he said, Naropa, stick your head out to me. After saying this, he took off his shoe with his right hand. He picked up the shoe and struck fiercely, hitting his forehead hard. Venerable Naropa immediately fainted and completely lost consciousness. When he regained consciousness, all the qualities in the Guru's mind stream had arisen in his own mind stream. The intentions of master and disciple became indivisible. When he was beaten severely, after the beating, he had already fainted. When he awoke from the faint, his wisdom merged as one with the Guru's, and he had completely achieved realization. In the past, Chan Master Huangbo also received Linji in this way. This is also recorded in history. When he asked about the great meaning of Buddhism 3 times after being beaten with 61 sticks, he achieved enlightenment. So historically, it's often said, Linji the general, Caodong the farmer. The Linji school is like generals. Generals are very skilled at seizing and beating people. Through this method, they indicate enlightenment. The Caodong school is like farmers, cultivating, gradually guiding disciples through very careful actions. So in Chan Buddhism, there are also different levels of guidance methods. This also exists in Chinese Buddhism. I also remember which book wrote about this. At that time, Chan Master Liaoyi relied on Chan Master Gaofeng. At the beginning, he told his disciple, all phenomena return to one, and had him continuously contemplate this koan. Later, when he saw snow on pine trees, he had some realization in his mind. When he had this realization, he wrote a verse for his guru. He thought he was enlightened, so he wrote a verse for his guru to see. However, after the guru read it, not only did he not praise it, but instead took a stick and beat him severely. The beating made him fall into a deep abyss. For 7 days and nights he was neither dead nor alive. But later, suddenly, he had an awakening. Due to the blessing power of the Guru's beating, he had an awakening. When he achieved enlightenment, he also wrote a verse. The great earth, mountains and rivers, a sheet of snow, when the sun shines, it vanishes without a trace. From now on, I doubt not the Buddhas and ancestors. No longer is there south, north, west or east. He sang such a verse at that time. I think this verse is very good. Mountains, rivers, and the great earth all become a sheet of snow. When the sun shines, all the snow disappears without a trace. Similarly, after the Guru blessed him by beating him with a stick, all these worldly phenomena disappeared. Everything was realizing a pure realm. At that time, regarding all the Vajra words of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, he had no doubt whatsoever. Before this state, all worldly phenomena don't exist, including the directions of east, south, west, and north. All phenomena completely vanish. He sang such a song when realizing the state of emptiness. I seem to have mentioned before in Footprints on the Journey that I really like when a guru gives one blow and then enlightenment occurs. Because whether in Tibetan Buddhism, India, or Han Buddhism, there are gurus' special blessings that enable complete recognition of one's mind's original face. Disciples with such faith are quite numerous. Thus, the 24 austerities experienced by the great scholar Venerable Naropa were actually all the guru's instructions and completely became means for purifying karmic obstacles. All the guru's actions on the surface seemed to have no relation to liberation, but actually all became means for liberation. Although on the surface it seemed merely meaningless toil, it felt like none of it was dharma. Moreover, the guru never taught him a single sentence of dharma. From the apparent perspective, he relied on him for at least 12 years. During those 12 years, basically, he was never taught particularly profound dharma. The disciple also never actually practiced once. Virtuous practices such as prostrations, mandala offerings, bowing, circumambulation, or reciting sutras, he had practiced almost none of these good deeds. But because he encountered an accomplished guru, he completely disregarded hardships and followed instructions 100%. Thus, obstacles were purified and genuine realization arose in his mind stream. When encountering truly great masters and accomplished beings, this can happen. Through different kinds of indications or blessing methods, the guru forcefully enables the disciple to achieve enlightenment, while the disciple's good connections from past lives and faith in this life, when these conditions are complete, immediate enlightenment occurs. But definitely, if one doesn't have such realization, doesn't have realization like Tilopa as a guru, one should accept disciples with a responsible attitude. This is very important. If one doesn't have such a state of realization, using sticks to beat disciples every day is meaningless. if one were to do the previous kinds of actions, it's very likely there would be lawsuits between disciple and guru. You see, if from a 9-story or 3-story building you make a disciple jump down, if the disciple doesn't die or does die, wouldn't his family and many others come looking? What if he becomes disabled? So generally, if we don't have such great accomplishment, gurus should also be careful and prudent. Through teaching, transmitting Dharma, or relatively gentle methods, enlightenment is also possible. Otherwise, if you pretend to be Chan Master Huangbo and beat disciples' heads with sticks, if you accidentally hit particularly sensitive temples, causing the disciple to completely faint and never wake up again, this would be an irresponsible attitude and unnecessary. It should be said that a qualified spiritual teacher would not beat a disciple to death. But it's also possible that in these degenerate times one doesn't truly have this level of accomplishment, but anyone can perform transcendental behaviors. They think that anyone can do such things. So in these aspects, during the process of relying on spiritual teachers, both sides must be cautious. In one's mind stream, genuine qualities will also be obtained. Among all practices, there is no practice that surpasses following the Guru's instructions. One can see that the merit of following instructions is so vast. If we follow instructions, this merit is extremely great. For example, in the Discourse on the 10 Stages, it also states, when seeking wisdom from others, one should not spare body or life. So when seeking wisdom from others, we should not be concerned about our body and life. Not to mention our Mahayana teachings being so sublime, even worldly knowledge, such as Brahmin learning or other worldly studies, can only be truly obtained after undergoing austerities. Therefore, if we truly disregard everything within ourselves and have such determination and resolve, then relying on a guru, achieving enlightenment in one's mind stream, would be completely different. So, as long as we properly approach spiritual teachers, seeing Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and obtaining all qualities would not be very difficult. By approaching spiritual teachers, quickly see those Buddhas. This is taught in the Avatamsaka Sutra. By approaching spiritual teachers, quickly see those Buddhas. If we properly approach spiritual teachers, then we will quickly see all Buddhas and all deities, and manifesting all transcendent states would not be very difficult. If our own behavior is also improper, and our minds often generate wrong knowledge, wrong views, and discriminating thoughts, then our own mind stream becomes tainted. It's impossible for signs of qualities to manifest. So here everyone should understand that in the process of relying on spiritual teachers, like Venerable Naropa relying on Tilopa, he was an Indian following Indian customs at that time. As I mentioned before, wisdom cannot be obtained without cause and conditions. Looking at some Brahmin stories from the past, Brahmin teachers and masters often had this requirement, either exchange material wealth for knowledge, or exchange one's life or bodily service for wisdom. There was no other choice. This was the saying. So in our current world, respect for the Guru, joy toward the Guru, and pure perception of the Guru are indispensable in the process of relying on spiritual teachers. If there are such conditions, naturally, in one's mind stream, one will also obtain many genuine blessings from the Guru. With the Guru's blessings, benefiting beings directly or indirectly would not be very difficult. So, we often see that since ancient times, many great masters, all without exception, respected their lineage gurus. When one becomes increasingly respectful toward one's Guru, outsiders may not necessarily understand him, but actually his actions will naturally benefit beings. So in our daily interactions with others, this point can also be observed and is extremely important. Conversely, the fault of ignoring the Guru's instructions is particularly serious. Once, Venerable Tilopa said, "Naropa, you should not take the position of guardian Pandita at Vikramashila Monastery." Vikramashila Monastery is the same as Odantapuri. India had two great monasteries, one was Nalanda and one was Odantapuri. At that time, he was asked not to take that position, because at that time in India, non-Buddhists were very rampant. If the guardian Pandita lacked wisdom and let non-Buddhists break in, all Buddhist monasteries would not be very stable. So from Taranatha's History of Buddhism in India, From historical books, we can see the customs and habits of India at that time. Guardian Panditas were extremely important. To become a Guardian Pandita, that was truly remarkable. But at that time, the Guru told him, by all means, don't go there to become a Guardian Pandita. Later, when Venerable Naropa went to central India, he happened to encounter the passing away of Vikramashila's Pandita. There was no one else who could debate with non-Buddhists. The monastery's abbot then requested him, by all means, please, you must become the Guardian Pandita of the North Gate. After repeated requests, he took on the guardian duties of the North Gate and had already made the commitment. Once, when he debated with non-Buddhists for several consecutive days, he could not win, so he began praying to his guru. One day he saw Venerable Tilopa appear before him. For a long time he hadn't appeared. The guru had gone somewhere unknown and hadn't appeared. One day when he appeared, Naropa said very sadly, "Guru, your compassion is so weak. Why didn't you come earlier? I've been waiting for you here for such a long time. Why didn't you come out earlier? When your disciple encountered such great difficulties, didn't you care for me, Guru?" Then the Guru said, "Didn't I tell you long ago not to become a Guardian Pandita? Now you'd better visualize me on top of your head, then use the threatening mudra pointing at those non-Buddhists during debate." Venerable Naropa also proceeded as his Guru instructed. As a result, he achieved great victory, defeating all the non-Buddhists' verbal attacks in one stroke. At that time, he had already won in all the debates with non-Buddhists. Actually, when he visualized his guru, he had such qualities and abilities. Through this story, we can also understand that when we encounter obstacles and difficulties in our practice, if we have the opportunity to consult our guru, we can do so. If we really don't have that opportunity, we can visualize our guru. When debating with non-Buddhists or debating with some people, when we really encounter difficulties, if we continuously visualize, perhaps the other party won't dare to look down on you. There are similar stories about Karma Chagme Rinpoche. Once, it seems a particularly renowned yogi came to the local area. This yogi was recognized by local people as a great accomplished master. A monk was preparing to visit him. At that time, it seems Karma Chagme Rinpoche was very young. This lama was quite nervous, saying, "I heard this yogi often criticizes others in public and scolds them very harshly. Sometimes when he strikes people, it can be very severe." So, at that time, the Lama really had no choice and asked Karma Chagme Rinpoche, "What should I do? If I don't go, with so many people also going to visit, it's not good not to go. But if I go, I'm afraid he might beat us. What should we do?" Karma Chagme Rinpoche said, "I'll go too. If we both go, there's a method." The monk said, "What method?" "When we meet him, his root guru is Machik Labdron. We should visualize Machik Labdron above our heads. He won't beat us. He wouldn't dare beat his own guru. So when we meet him, we should still visualize his guru above our heads." So they went, and when they visited, they truly visualized their root guru above their heads when going to meet him. When they went to meet him, that yogi was truly a person with supernatural powers. As soon as he saw them, he received them with exceptional respect and great joy. This is also one method. Actually, sometimes there are certain teachers who particularly love to criticize, so people dare not go to see them. In our Kham region, there was once Khenpo Chokyap. Khenpo Chokyap was a truly remarkable spiritual friend, but later Khenpo Norpa and I once wanted to visit him. Originally, we planned to go, but we heard that whenever someone came to visit, he would criticize them severely, so we were quite afraid. Especially if criticized in front of many people, it would be unacceptable and embarrassing. Later, one day on my way back from the monastery, we decided we must go to see him. When we arrived at that place, they were having a festival. The teacher was sitting on the Dharma throne with many people around. We didn't dare approach because with so many people there, if he criticized us, we probably couldn't handle it. So we prayed from a distance. After that, we never met him in person again, though we were close by. So throughout history, some teachers have always appeared to criticize anyone who comes and point out their faults. Each teacher's behavior may be different. There are all kinds of situations. The story of Naropa's devotion to his spiritual teacher is now complete. Next is Milarepa's devotion to translator Marpa. This story begins. In the region of Ngarigungtang, there was a wealthy man named Mila Sherab Gyaltsen. He had 2 children. His eldest son was called Mila Thopaga. At that time, Milarepa was originally called Thopaga, who was the venerable Milarepa. During their childhood as siblings, they initially lived a very happy life. Later, his father unfortunately passed away. All the family's wealth was completely seized by his uncle, Yungdrung Gyaltsen. The 3 of them, mother and children, had no food or possessions. They suffered all kinds of hardships. I think many Dharma friends have already read Milarepa's story. I don't need to elaborate extensively here. Many people entered the Dharma gate through reading Milarepa's biography. When I wrote Dharma Friends, many first read Milarepa's biography before entering Buddhism. Some even cried for 3 days and nights. Later, Milarepa learned black magic and hailstorm techniques from Yungton Trogyal and Lharje Nupchung. In the end, he killed 35 people, including his uncle's sons and daughters-in-law. Different historical accounts give varying numbers. Because the local people had oppressed them so severely, he also sent down hailstones as high as 3 wooden planks. From the biography, we see corpses everywhere. Cattle, sheep, and other birds all died. Because he sent down hailstones at that time, you see, when we have even small hailstones, many people almost die from them. With such large hailstones, needless to say, what would happen? At first, Milarepa was very joyful, and his mother was especially happy, singing many songs. I won't recite all of these. Anyway, at that time, everyone present, the Tibetan songs his mother sang, I can recite some of them. Milarepa deeply regretted the evil karma he had created in the past. Thus, he gave rise to the intention to practice Dharma and, following his teacher Yungton's advice, came before a Dzogchen yogi named Rongton Laga to request teachings. Recently in India, they also made a biography film of Milarepa. I watched it briefly. Some teachers in our Tibetan regions have also made biographical films of Milarepa with both Chinese and Tibetan narration. But the Milarepa in there is portrayed as a Kampa man, which seems a bit different from the Milarepa in my mind. Plus, some of the actors, I won't say more. Master Rongton Laga said this, my supreme Dzogchen teaching has supreme generation as its root, supreme attainment as its peak, and supreme realization as its fruit. He explained it in terms of ground, path, and fruition. Practice in the day and become Buddha in the day. Practice at night and become Buddha at night. Those with karmic connections need not practice. Merely hearing brings liberation. This is a teaching that only those of extremely sharp faculties have the fortune to practice. Now I bestow this teaching upon you. You may practice it or not practice it. At that time the teacher spoke to him in this way. Then the teacher gave him empowerment and transmitted the pith instructions. Milarepa thought to himself at that time, when I first practiced black magic, I achieved great results in just 14 days. Learning hailstorm techniques also took only 7 days to succeed. It seems this teaching is even easier than black magic and hailstorm techniques. Dzogchen must be very easy. Didn't the teacher just say, practice in the day and become Buddha in the day? Practice at night and become Buddha at night. Those with karmic connections need not practice. Since I have already encountered this teaching, I must surely be someone with karmic connections. So he didn't practice, and his reasoning was correct. Without karmic connections, it would be impossible to encounter it. Those with connections become Buddha without practicing. I must be someone with connections. I'm such a person of sharp faculties. So he didn't practice and spent all day indulging in sleep. In the film they made, he just played around, doing somersaults, that Kampa man. As a result, the Dharma and his mind stream went in opposite directions. Because Dzogchen relies on devotion for practice, perhaps on one hand, his teacher had no real karmic connection with him in this lifetime. He didn't practice and went in the opposite direction. After several days like this, one day the teacher said to him, I heard you are a great sinner, and this is indeed true. I was also somewhat exaggerated about this teaching. He spoke of Dzogchen in a somewhat exaggerated way. It seems I now have no way to tame you. You'd better go to Trowalung Monastery in Lodrak. There is a direct disciple of the great Indian Siddha Naropa, the noble great translator Marpa Lotsawa. He is an accomplished master of the new tantric tradition, unequaled in the three realms. You have karmic connections with him from past lives. You should go there. At that time, Milarepa, merely upon hearing the venerable name of translator Marpa, felt indescribable joy in his heart, and his sharp conceptual thinking instantly disappeared. All the hair on his body stood up. He felt incomparable bliss, and tears filled his eyes. You see, earlier there was Rongten Laga, a great teacher and Dzogchen practitioner, but because Milarepa had Mahamudra as his karmic basis, he did not achieve realization before the Dzogchen teacher. Upon hearing of Marpa Lotsawa, he was very joyful. He had connections with this teacher. He gave rise to incomparable faith and devotion, and couldn't help thinking to himself, when will I be able to meet this teacher and see him face to face? So he immediately set out for Trowalung in Lodrak. I have never been to Trowalung in Lodrak. Many Dharma friends have sent photos from there, the place where Milarepa served under Marpa Lotsawa, including the place where the teacher first appeared to him in the form of a farmer. All these places still exist. These are certainly very blessed sacred places for us. If you have the opportunity to make pilgrimage to Lhasa in the future, you should conveniently visit there as well, though I hear it's quite far from Lhasa. Through Milarepa's manner of serving his spiritual teacher, many people have truly understood the importance of serving a spiritual teacher. The entire process has been understood. Sometimes I think of Milarepa's inconceivable blessing power, including Western people, because Milarepa's biography exists in English. When His Holiness visited Western countries in the past, many Westerners were especially delighted. Upon seeing this biography, different kinds of faith would arise spontaneously. So I think in this world there are so many great works and biographies, but why is Milarepa's biography such that whether in Han regions, Tibetan regions or other countries, people are equally delighted by it? There is also an invisible blessing power within it, so we must never develop wrong views or doubts. It is said that in the past, in places like Malaysia and Singapore, some individual Chinese Buddhist masters also said that the process of serving spiritual teachers in Milarepa's biography was unreasonable, saying this publicly among many people. Actually, these statements show that they don't understand the true principles. There's nothing that can be done, especially when non-human beings come to disturb one's thoughts. Speaking nonsense in words is also a normal phenomenon, but we truly don't have the capacity or qualification to criticize the authentic deeds of great masters. Actually, Milarepa's story in this world is something that truly happened. It's not, as I mentioned earlier, a mythological story. So, in our process of study, we should also read with a joyful heart. When convenient in the future, I hope all of you present will read some of Milarepa's song collections and his biography. There are many types of this biography available now in Chinese. The most famous one is the translation by Garma C. Chang. Many people have already read it. Let me stop here.
Om